إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Alhamdulillah, we are going through the Mufassal today. We are halfway through the 52nd Hizb. And we are well into the 26th Juz. We're in the Mufassal, which are the last portions of the Quran, from Surah Qaf all the way to Surah An-Nas. So, ul-Masir Fi Ilm it-Tafsir, Imam ibn Al-Jawzi rahimahullah, he is starting by saying, quote, we now look at Surah Qaf. Surah Qaf is also known by other names. One of those names is Surah Basiqat, the Surah of great gatherings of knowledge. It was narrated from others and Ibn Abbas that this is a Meccan surah. Likewise, the same was said by Al-Hasan al-Basri, Mujahid, Ikrima ibn Abi Jahl, Qatada, and the vast and preponderant majority of scholars of commentary. However, although this is a Meccan surah, there is one ayah within it that is a Medinan ayah. It was narrated that this ayah is وَلَقَدْ خَلَقَنَا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, and we have created the skies and the earth. Surah Qaf, the 50th surah, ayah 38. This was mentioned by Ibn Abbas and Qatada. Ayah 38 is the only ayah that is from Al-Madinah. Allah begins this surah by saying, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Qaf wal Qur'anil Majid bal ajibu an ja'ahum منذر منهم فقال الكافرون هذا شيء عجيب أإذا متنا وكنا ترابا ذلك رجع بعيد قد علمنا ما تنقص الأرض منهم وعندنا كتاب حفيظ بل كذبوا بالحق لما جاءهم فهم في أمر مريج أفلم ينظروا في السماء فوقهم كيف بنيناها وزيناها وما لها من فروج وَالْأَرْضَ مَدَدْنَاهَا وَأَلْقَيْنَا فِيهَا رَوَاسِيَ وَأَنبَتْنَا فِيهَا مِن كُلِّ زَوْجٍ بَهِيجٍ تَبْصِرَةً وَذِكْرَى لِكُلِّ عَبْدٍ مُنِيبٍ وَنَزَّلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً مُبَارَكًا فأنبتنا به جنات وحب الحصيد والنخل باسقات لها طلع نضيد رزقا للعباد وأحيينا به بلدة ميتا كذلك الخروج كذبت قبلهم قوم نوح وأصحاب الرس وثمود وعاد وفرعون وإخوان لوط وأصحاب الأيكة وقوم تبع كل كذب الرسل فحق وعيد أفعينا بالخلق الأول بل هم في لبس من خلق جديد. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the compassionate. Qaf, by the Quran in its majesty. Indeed, they are astonished that there comes to them a warner from among themselves. Those who reject faith say, this is something strange indeed. Is it then the case that when we are dead and we are dust, that there shall be a return? This is something far away and far-fetched indeed. But already we know what the earth has taken from their remains and what it leaves. And we have the book preserving all things. On the contrary, they deny the truth when it came to them, and they are in a mixed up affair. Do they not look at the sky above them, how we have fashioned it and ornamented it, and it has no cracks therein? Have they not seen the earth, how it was spread out? And we have placed therein on the land firm standing pegs. And we have caused to sprout forth from the land every pair of herb and vegetation. This is a clear insight and a remembrance and admonition for every slave that reflects. We've sent down from the sky water as a blessing, and we cause to spring forth from it gardens and seeds that sprout at the harvest time. Date palms that are spread out and gathered, that have fruits and all types of matter that come from them for the eating. A sustenance for the slaves. And we have given life to a dead and barren land. Likewise, so shall the resurrection be. The people before them denied. The people of Nuh, the people of Ar-Ras, and the Thamud. Also the Ad, the Fir'aun, and the companions and brothers of Lut. The people of Al-Aika, and the people of Tubba. Each one of them denied the messengers. So it was only right that there came unto them the threat which they had been promised. Is it then the case that we've been shown the new creation from before or the first? No. They are in doubt regarding the new creation to come, when we have already fashioned the first. Surah Qaf, the 50th surah, ayat 1 to 15. As for Qaf, the vast majority understand that the pronunciation of it is that it's to be pronounced as Qaf without any further emphasis on the fa in the word. However, Abdur-Rahman al-Sulami, Abu al-Mutawakkil, Abu al-Raja, and Abu al-Jawzi say that it can also be recited as Qaf. But Abu al-Razin and Qatada say Qafu. While Abu al-Hasan and Abu Imran have been known to recite it as Qafi. Now, with regard to just this letter by itself, there have been numerous discussions about it. One is that Allah is swearing by this letter because it represents one of his names. This was mentioned by Ibn Abbas. The second, also from Ibn Abbas, is that Qaf is a mountain near to there of green emerald. It's a mountain near Mecca. Ibn Abbas remarked by saying, however, it has been mentioned that Allah created a mountain known as Qaf, the largest mountain that surrounds the world, and its roots are actually embedded in the foundation of the world. So whenever Allah desires to send an earthquake upon a people, that mountain that all other mountains are made from that surrounds the earth, one of its roots shakes out of place. And whichever root is near that particular location is what shakes loose and shakes that area. Mujahid remarked that it is a mountain that also surrounds the land. So it's not necessarily the earth, but the land in that area specifically. Now, Ad-Dahhak has said that this mountain, this large mountain, is what all their mountains are made up of. And that the green emeraldness of it, or the greenness of its peak, and that its colors that are in it are on account of the reflection coming off of the sky. The third point, because the second regarding it being this large mountain on earth, the third point is that it's been stated that this is one of the mountains of fire that shall be in the great fire. This was said by Ad-Dahhak as well as Ibn Abbas. As for the fourth statement, it is mentioned that this is one of the names of the Quran. So Qaf is one of the names. This was mentioned by Qatada. The fifth is that Qaf, is actually a letter of a word. And because it is the letter of a word, it's spelling something. Regarding what it's spelling, then the following things have been said. It has been said that Qaf is the beginning of the word Al-Qadir, the powerful. As well as Al-Qahir, the victorious. Al-Qahir, the victorious. Al-Qarib, Al-Qarib, the near. As well as Qudi al-Amr, Qudi al-Amr, the judgment has come. To remember this commentary, a set of poetry was said. قلنا لها قفي فقالت قاف. We said to the matter, just a moment. But the matter said, Qaf, it's already been completed. For there is no escape from the judgment. This commentary was mentioned by Abu al-Aliya al-Qurdi and az-Zajjaj. Also, the Qaf is spelling out the expression قف عند أمرنا, وَنَهِينَا. Stop at our command and our prohibition. وَلَا تَعْدُهُمَا, and do not transgress them. So here, qaf, Allah, here, those who state this, Allah has put qaf here, which means قِفْ عِنْدَ أَمْرِنَا وَنَهْيِنَا وَلَا تَعْدُهُمَا. Stop at the places where I've commanded and forbade you, and do not transgress the boundaries. This was mentioned by Abu Bakr al-Warraq. And finally, Qaf is said to stand for قُلْ يَا Muhammad. Say to them, Muhammad. This was mentioned by a Tha'labi. Now, when Allah after this says, by Qaf, by the majestic Quran, Ibn Abbas and Ibn Jubayr both say that Al-Majid is similar in meaning to Al-Kareem. So here Allah is referencing the Quran as being both generous but also majestic. So the answer to this oath that Allah has given when He swore by the majestic Quran. Then after this, Allah begins to discuss the resurrection after death, which is mentioned by Al-Farra and Ibn Qutaybah. And this is proof on the statement of surprise given by the unbelievers when they say this is something strange. And when the Exalted One said, already we know what has been taken from their remains and what's been left. Meaning that whatever has been taken from their limbs, then He, Allah, already knows it and it's been preserved. And similarly, when Allah says, وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا, by the sun and its illumination. Surah Al-Shams, ayat 1-9, this expression of giving an oath and then supplying the information thereafter, Allah uses this often in the Quran. Meaning, by the sun and its illumination, and then He, Allah, explains what the subject matter will be. In this case, Qaf, by the majestic Quran, and then Allah gives the subject matter and theme of this surah, which is resurrection after death. This was mentioned by Az-Zajjaj. The same way as when Allah says, مَا يَلْفِظُ مِنْ قَوْلٍ, they don't utter a single word except that it was preserved. So here it's referring to the resurrection after death and the day of resurrection. And when they say, بَلْ عَجِبُوا, but they are astonished. This was discussed in Surah Sad, the 38th Surah, Ayat 4. And they say that it's something unusual or odd. أَإِذَا مِتْنَا, when we are dead and dust and bones. It is as if they're saying, in response to the fact that you'll be returned for resurrection, they're saying, what? When we're dust and bones, we're coming back for resurrection? And the response was, yes, Qaf wal Quran, by the Quran that is majestic, certainly they shall be resurrected. And then they say in response, how when we're dust and bones? Ibn Jarir has said, they expressed astonishment at the threat of Allah on account of their denial of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they said, "This is something strange indeed. It is as if he had said to them, you will know when you're resurrected your condition because you have denied me." And then they've remarked in response, "How can that be? Once one has died, he has died." That return, meaning returning to this earthly life after death, is far away indeed. Ba'id in this sense does not mean far by distance, but it means far-fetched, meaning that it shall not be. We know what the earth takes from their remains and what it leaves, meaning that whatever the earth eats of their flesh and their blood and their hair and their bones when they die, none of that slips from the knowledge of Allah. And Allah says, and in our sight, meaning with our knowledge of that, is a book that preserves it, preserving the number of people who died, their names, what the earth took from their bodies. And the preserved tablet has preserved in it everything of what shall be. But they've denied the truth. And in this sense, it's referring to the Quran. But they are in a certain affair, Amadim Marij, mixed up, as said by Ibn Qutaybah. And so when people become mixed up, they're mixed up in their religion, much like the waters of the ocean become mixed when there are waves. So when something becomes mixed up, overthrown, the same word we use if a ring becomes mixed up in one's hand, where it's thrown around. And the scholars of commentary say their matter has become mixed up because there are some who say that the Prophet ﷺ, at one moment he's a magician, then in another moment they say he's a poet, then in another moment they say someone's teaching him this. Of the Quran, in one moment they say it's magic, in another moment they say it's lies, in another moment they say it's rhyming prose. So they're mixed up and they are unsure exactly what to say. Then in the next ayah, Allah shows His might and His power to resurrect when He says, "Do they not look towards the sky above them, how it was fashioned without pillars? And it was ornamented," meaning ornamented with stars and other matters, "and it has no cracks in it," meaning that there's nothing that comes in from outside of it to the point to where the sky is ruptured. And everything they've been given in pairs of vegetation, meaning its genus. There are numerous genus within the plant kingdom and others. It is an insight and an admonition to every faithful slave. So here Allah is showing, as said by Az-Zajjaj, that that's been done so that it might be an indication of His might. And the one that knows he's going back to Allah, and he reflects on the might and the grandeur of Allah. And we have sent down from the water from the sky in the form of rain as a blessing, meaning blessing in Arabic, mubarak or baraka, means a hefty amount of good that's been gathered all at once. So when He says we sent down from the sky water as a blessing, it's a blessing because a whole bunch of good is gathered in one place at once, but also within water is a blessing because it contains life for everything. And we cause to sprout forth by it, on account of it, gardens. Now in this sense, gardens by the gardens that one has at parks and other areas, and the seeds of harvest. Because the seeds first have to be laid, and then the dirt is put over them, and then they're watered, and then they sprout forward. Just as like the same statement, now Allah, the Exalted, attributes this action to himself, for he is in charge. When he says, لَهُوَ الْحَقُّ الْيَقِينَ, he has the sure reality. Surah Al-Waqi'ah, ayah 95. And his statement, مِنْ حَبَلِ الْوَرِيدِ, closer to him than his own jugular vein. Surah Qaf, ayah 16. So the jugular vein here, we already know what's being referred to. Now, in regards to this other area, the matter that Allah is referring to, the date palm, meaning he's caused to sprout forth the date palm with all of its gathered goodness in length and breadth, as mentioned by Abu Qutaybah, and that some branches are over others, and that all of its goodness has been concentrated as a sustenance for the slaves, meaning these things have been brought about to be a sustenance for the slaves. And on account of it, meaning the rain, a dead barren land has been brought forward. And likewise shall the resurrection be, meaning from the grave. Likewise, the resurrection from the graves is of the same sort as a dead barren land being brought to life by life-giving rain that's come from the sky as a blessing. Then right after this, Allah mentions the previous nations that rejected. And we've already discussed these nations in great detail, so we shall not mention all these ayat again. But Allah says, and indeed, his threat is true. So it's necessary for them to receive the punishment. And when they say, shall we not, the return again is a far-fetched thing. Here Allah is saying, is it not the first creation was brought about in the first place? Was it difficult for us to begin the creation? So if it wasn't difficult to begin the creation, how can it be difficult to bring about the second creation? Wouldn't that therefore be easier? And this is a form of refutation being given to them, because the people being referred to in this ayah are acknowledging that he's the one that brought it into being first. He created it, yet they're denying the resurrection. And they are in doubt regarding the new creation. Now, the expression new creation, min khalqin jadid, the new creation here is referring to the resurrection. And the first creation is the beginning of all things. The Exalted One, he then says, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ وَنَعْلَمُ مَا تُوَسْوِسُ بِهِ نَفْسُهُ وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ إِذْ يَتَلَقَّى الْمُتَلَقِّيَانِ عَنِ الْيَمِينِ وَعَنِ الشِّمَالِ قَعِيدٌ ما يلفظ من قول إلا لديه رقيب عتيد وجاءت سكرة الموت بالحق ذلك ما كنت منه تحيد ونفخ في الصور ذلك يوم الوعيد وجاءت كل نفس معها سائق وشهيد لقد كنت في غفلة من هذا فكشفنا عنك غطاءك فبصرك اليوم حديد وقال قرينه هذا ما لدي عتيد ألقيا في جهنم كل كفار عنيد مناع للخير معتد مريب الذي جعل مع الله إلها آخر فألقياه في العذاب الشديد قال قرينه ربنا ما أطغيته ولكن كان في ضلال بعيد قال لا تختصموا لدي وقد قدمت إليكم بالوعيد ما يبدل القول لدي وما أنا بظلام للعبيد يوم نقول لجهنم هل امتلأت وتقول هل من مزيد وأزلفت الجنة للمتقين غير بعيد هذا ما توعدون لكل أواب حفيظ من خشي الرحمن بالغيب وجاء بقلب منيب ادخلوها بسلام ذلك يوم الخلود لهم ما يشاءون فيها ولدينا مزيد. And we had created the human being, and we know what is whispered into his self. And we are nearer to him than his jugular vein. And when the 2 meters from the right and the left come together, and they are seated on the sides of him, there's no statement that he utters except that Raqib and Atid are near to him, ready to write it down. The pangs of death come in truth, and there is no way for you to escape from that. The horn shall be blown into. That is the threatened day to come. And when that comes, every soul that has with it, its end shall come with a witness. You were in clear and utter heedlessness from that which is to come. So, now has been lifted from you your veil, and your sight is clear today. The qareen of that person will say, this is my record waiting with me for you. Throw him into the great fire with every stubborn unbeliever, hindering the good, transgressing. The one who made with Allah another God, place him in the stern punishment. The qareen will say, our Lord, you did not fall short regarding him, but he was in astrayness on his own account. He will say, do not dispute in my presence. You already received news of the threat beforehand. And my word does not change, and I do not oppress my slaves. This is a day in which we will say to the great fire, are you full? And the great fire shall respond, are there any more? The paradise shall be brought near for those who are pious, not far. This is what you were promised for every one who was firm in his resolve and preserved his faith. The one who feared the most merciful and the unseen, and he came with a clean heart. Enter therein with peace. That is the day of eternity. They shall have what they will. And this is what they will, and they shall even have more than that in our presence. That is something additional. Surah Qaf, the 50th surah, ayat 16 to 35. When the Exalted One says we are nearer to him than his own jugular vein, nearer to him refers to knowledge. Than his own jugular vein. This jugular vein, we've already partially discussed the jugular vein before, in which it is one of the main connectors showing the life of that human being. We discussed some of this in ayah 9, how Allah attributes matters to himself to show majesty, connection, but also other matters. Now, the jugular vein is a vein between the throat and the upper areas. And if that is interrupted or cut, the person loses consciousness. It is crucial that circulation continues therein. So he, Allah, says he's closer than the jugular vein, which, if interrupted with the circulation, the person loses consciousness. Now, it's been said by one of the scholars that this jugular vein is not only in the neck, but has connections going throughout the body to the other limbs. And these other limbs service one another. However, this is speculative. As for the rest of the ayah, the meaning is we are nearer to him, meaning with knowledge, than his own jugular vein. And those two ones waiting to write, those two ones waiting to write are the two angels entrusted with writing down the deeds of the son of Adam. On the right and on the left. On the right is the one writing down the righteous deeds, and on the left is the one writing down the sins. An expression, Raqibun Atid. Firstly, as Zajjaj has mentioned, that from the right is Qa'id, and from the left is Qa'id, meaning that they're both filling a position. So Qa'id is in reference to a position, a post. Qa'id also means Qa'id, sitting. Just as when we say Qadir, means powerful. So Qa'id means they are waiting, they are present. No human being utters any statement. Nothing falls from his mouth except that there is Raqib. Raqib is the name of the angel on the right. And Atid is the name of the one on the left. And you'll notice that these names appear next to each other. Raqibun, Atid. Raqib, right. Atid, left. As Zajjaj has mentioned, that Atid in this sense means, linguistically means to be established, to be present. And both Raqib and Atid are with him wherever he is. Abu Umama narrates a hadith in which the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, the righteous deeds of the man are written down by one on the right, and the sins are written down by the one on his left. The writer of the righteous deeds is the trustee over the writer of the evil deeds. When the man commits a righteous act, the angel writes down 10 deeds. And when the man intends on committing a sinful act, the angel on the left prepares to write. The angel on the right says to him, wait just a moment. Wait just a moment. The angel on the left leaves the man for 7 hours. If the man sought forgiveness for his sin, the man sought forgiveness for his sin, nothing's written against him. But if he did not seek forgiveness, one sin is written against him. This hadith has been collected by at-Tabarani. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he says of this narration, so Allah has made to be trustee over the human being 2 preservers in the night and 2 in the day that switch. Now the scholars have differed. Are all of the actions and the statements of the human being written down? Each and every single one? There are 2 opinions on this matter. The first is that every thing is written down. The first position is that everything is written down. Even his groaning in illness. This was mentioned by Mujahid. As for the second position is they only write down what entails sin or reward. This was mentioned by Ikrimah. Now, their place of gathering, as we've already discussed, and which the Quran has made reference to, is that one is on the right and one is on the left. We've already mentioned this as well in the hadith of Abu Umama. And so, we will now shortly be discussing a hadith that has been narrated by Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu. Close quote. قُلَ قَبْلِ هَذَا اسْتَغْفِرُ اللَّهَ لِي وَلَكُمْ وَاسْتَغْفِرُ اللَّهَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ حَمِيدٌ رَحِيمٌ. Inshallah, we'll stop here for Salat al-Maghrib. And inshallah, we'll return. We'll complete the rest. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على الرسول الكريم وبعد. Alhamdulillah, when we left for Salah, The Imam was just on the verge of quoting a hadith narrated from Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anh. Now, just as a quick note, you'll notice sometimes that when some of the ancient scholars mention Ali ibn Abi Talib's name, sometimes they put radiallahu anh or alayhi salam because from the household of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or sometimes karramallahu wajhahu, may Allah ennoble his face, right? Because he's from the direct lineal household of the Prophet ﷺ, so you'll see these extra markings. Just like after Fatima's name, you might see Ali has salam, or things like this. Or you'll see after Khadija al-Kubra's name, Ali has salam. You'll see these type of things. So don't be at all confused by that, because they're not only companions, but they are a lineal relation to prophets. Right? So the Imam, he starts by saying, quote, and so we have the hadith narrated by Ali ibn Abi Talib, karramallahu wajhahu, from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who said, indeed, the place of the angels is on the two, over the two shoulders. The sitting place of the two angels over the two shoulders. Your tongue is their pin. Your words are their ink. And you set yourselves up when you delve in affairs that do not concern you. This is collected by Ibn Abi Dunya. Al-Hasan, Al-Basri, and Al-Dhahak have both said that the place of their sitting is under the hair near the shoulders. When Allah the Exalted says, and the pangs of death shall come. The pangs of death refer to its trials and difficulties in which the human being loses consciousness, loses his intellect. And these are the indications that he shall die. So the pangs of death have come in truth, meaning these are the true signs that death is coming. And in truth, it is a sign of the hereafter. So it's made clear to the human being what was originally not clear to him regarding the hereafter. As is said by Ibn Jarir and Al-Farra. Now Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anh would sometimes recite the ayah as وَجَاءَتْ سَكْرَةُ الْحَقِّ بِالْمَوْتِ, rather than al-maut bil-haq. Now Ibn Jarir al-Tabari says, now because of this recitation, There are two things we can say. One is that the truth, it is Allah. The pangs that are coming from Allah, the signs, the things that are being brought are the signs of death in which you are going to go into resurrection thereafter. And the pangs that you are feeling are death, but is being sent by Allah. Just as much as when he says, إِنَّ هَذَا لَهُوَ الْحَقُّ الْيَقِينَ. Indeed, this is the clear certainty. Surah Al-Waqi'ah 95. So the truth is manifested when death comes. Now the expression sakarat and sakarat, Ibn Mas'ud, Abu Imran recited as وَجَاءَتْ sakaratu, in which sakara is in the plural form. While the others, Ubay ibn Ka'ab, Sa'id ibn Jubair, recited differently. Now that is, meaning the death that is coming to the human being is what you had been fleeing from and attempting to escape and what you dislike. Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu mentions this commentary. The horn shall be blown into, which this is the horn of resurrection. And that is, meaning that day, is the day that the threat was made, that you shall come to that day. The day in which the threat that Allah gave shall come to pass. And with it, with that soul, shall be coming the angel that shall bring that human being to the resurrection place, as mentioned by Abu Hurairah. And also every human being has a qareen. And this qareen is named sa'iq, because it follows the human being and he might influence it. Now, when it's saying, when Allah says that, there's a sa'iq and a shaheed. The sa'iq is the qareen, and the shaheed is referring to the angel that bears witness regarding the deeds of that soul. This was mentioned by Uthman ibn Affan, Al-Hasan al-Basri. While Mujahid said, this also because the angel that bears witness is one of those angels writing down the deeds. So Sa'iq and Shaheed refers to back to the angels as well as the Qareen. Ibn As-Sa'ib is said, the one who writes down the sins, the one who writes down the righteous deeds. The sins, because the angel that writes down the sins also notates that you are influencing the Qareen, whereas the Shaheed writes down the righteous deeds. The actions of a human being bear witness against him, as mentioned by Abu Hurairah. And the hands and the feet also shall bear witness against him on account of his actions, as we've discussed in ayat before. Ad-Dahhak has said this as well. Now, these ayat that are being listed, that shall come to pass, the Sa'iq and the Shaheed, are these ayat being given to us, are they general or are they specific? The statement in question, the vast majority say that these ayat are general for everyone. The second opinion is that they are specific to the unbeliever because what's being mentioned in these ayat is condemning. It's condemnation. And believers are not due to receive condemnation on the day of resurrection, as discussed by Ad-Dahhak and Muqatil. And when the Exalted One says, and you were in heedlessness regarding this day. Now in this ayah, Allah the Exalted is speaking to, according to Ibn Abbas and Salih ibn Kaysan, he's speaking to the unbeliever, for he is heedless. But according to Hussein ibn Abdullah, who's the great-grandson of Ibn Abbas, this is general regarding both the righteous and the sinful person, and the chosen position of Ibn Jarir as well. Now, the third statement is that it's a reference to the Prophet ﷺ saying this to people. As said by Ibn Zayd. Now, the first statement, that this is in regards to the unbeliever, then it means you were heedless of this day in the earthly life on account of your rejecting faith in it. But if we say it's in regards to the believer and the unbeliever, then the ayah holds the meaning that you were heedless of the conditions of the hereafter that were coming. That which was in the earthly life blinded your heart, your hearing, and your vision. So now we are showing you what was unseen. As for the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, in which someone said it's in reference to him saying it, because he did not know of revelation before it was given to him, and so he did not know this information before Allah revealed it and gave it to him. And so his sight was made sharp and clear by revelation. So when Allah says, فَبَبَصْرُكَ الْيَوْمَ حَدِيدٌ, your sight today was made clear. The intent here of the sight is the internal sight, the insight. As said by Ad-Dahhak, as well as the knowledge, which is said by Az-Zajjaj, that previously you didn't have this full knowledge. Now, today, on the day of resurrection, you know. Now, some have said that today refers to in the earthly life as you are leaving it, as said by Ibn Zayd. And as for the statement hadid, sharp, Ibn Qutaybah said it means that your vision is penetrating. You have penetrating insight that you didn't have before. And now you see that your deeds, both sinful and righteous, have weight for the hereafter, as said by Mujahid. And that the human being, the individual, that did not think about his condition for the hereafter now sees what's happened, as mentioned by Muqatil. And that the knowledge is a window into the hereafter, as said by Az-Zajjaj. And his qareen shall say. Now, qareen means companion or sidekick. And so based upon this, Muqatil says that qareen here is in the first sense, which means sidekick, which means the angel which would write down his sinful deeds in this earthly life is saying, Lord, I wrote down what you commanded me to write down. And it's with me, present from his evil deeds. And I will give them to you so you have them. So the matter is then made clear. And we've mentioned Atid, Al-Atid, and Al-Raqib in Ayah 18 when we discussed this. And when Allah the Exalted says, so place him in the great fire. Now this is being spoken to in which you have one person being addressed by two people. But this is being done for emphasis. And that place him in the fire because of his wickedness and his evil. So the two angels are asking for this person to be punished because it's in the dual form. He was a hinderer of good, meaning the zakah, as mentioned by Qatada. He was a hinderer of good, meaning Islam, because he attempted to prevent people from entering into Islam, as mentioned by Al-Dhahak and Muqatil. It's been said that this ayah was sent down regarding Al-Walid ibn Al-Mughira because he hindered his brother from entering into Islam. But this is general. This ayah in reality is general regarding every good thing, word and deed, that could be hindered or prevented, as said by Al-Mawardi. And he's an oppressor because he does not affirm the Tawheed of Allah. And he is doubtful and filled with suspicion regarding the truth. But in another ayah, when it says, قَالَ قَرِينُهُ, ayah 27, this is referring to, this ayah is taken to be referring to the qareen, that's not the sidekick, but the jinn that's assigned with him, as said by Ibn Abbas, Mujahid, Qatada, and the vast majority. Now, we've already discussed some of this beforehand. The human being on that day will claim that his qareen was the one that led him astray, but he will say, our Lord, ma adghaytuhu, I've not caused him to slip. I have no power to force him to go astray. He was led astray on his own account. And the angel that wrote down the sins that he did with that qareen shall likewise say the same thing. Because some will say, oh, what was written against me I did not do. But the angel will say, I've not increased or exaggerated in this affair. This was mentioned by Sa'id ibn Jubayr. But he was in clear astrayness, meaning he was far from guidance. And Allah the Exalted said, do not dispute in my presence. Meaning, don't seek an excuse from judgment without an excuse. As mentioned by Ibn Abbas, and their dispute with their qareens. Do not seek any excuse from the oppression that you did to one another while in the earthly life. It's not possible to have that lifted from you on the day in which all affairs are brought to pass. I've already brought to you the threat from before, and I have informed you on the tongues of the messengers of my punishment to come in the hereafter for whoever rejects faith. And my words never change, and my decree does not change. So, in that which Allah has promised of reward and punishment, His decree does not change. And this is the commentary mentioned by the vast majority. And no one denies in my sight nor changes the statement from its place, because He, Allah, is saying that He knows the unseen. He knows how people were led astray, how others will lead them astray, and how you will lead them astray. He knows the full event. And this is a proof of what He said. My word does not change. And I am not an oppressor to my slave. Meaning He doesn't increase someone in their own sin or take away from someone's goodness. Everyone's judgment is what they have coming to them. On a day in which it will be said to the great fire, are you full? So this is referring to a day in which He's warning them that it will be said to the great fire. Now the question is, why is it that He, Allah, already knows whether it's full or not? So what would be the benefit in asking the great fire whether it's full or not? The answer to this question is because It's a rebuke to those who've been put into the fire, and it shows the severity Allah has against them. Just remember the statement that Allah had made previously, لَأَمْلَأَنَّ جَهَنَّمْ, and He has said, I will surely fill the great fire. Surah Al-Araf, the 7th Surah, 18. And as well as His statement, هَلْ مِن مَزِيد, are there any more? Meaning it's saying, after it's been filled, are there more to come? Is there some other space that can be made if there's more to come? Because the great fire is showing, because this statement, hal mim mazid, this is a statement of rage that the fire is showing towards those who disobey Allah. And Allah has made it the case for the fire to distinguish and speak on its own behalf. Just the same way that Allah has made it possible for the ants to speak. Enter your habitations, Surah An-Naml, ayat 18. So if ants can speak, and they're such a small creation, and they can praise Allah and give glory to Him, then surely the great fire, which is greater than an ant, can speak. And when the paradise is brought near to the pious, so it's brought near to the pious ones who did not engage in idolatry. It's not far away. So, as we've discussed in other ahadith, that the paradise will be brought, in which it will be on the right of the Arsh when the people see it on the day of resurrection. And it will be said to them, this, meaning that which you see, is what you were promised. ما توعدون. Now, Uthman ibn Affan, Ibn Umar, Mujahid, Ikrimah, and Ibn Muhis say that this can also be recited as ما يوعدون, what they were promised. For every likulli awabin, for every upright one. Now this definition of awab was discussed in Surah Bani Israel, the 17th Surah, 25. And hafiz. This expression that He, Allah, has mentioned, this is what's been given for every upright one who's preserving. Preserving what? Preserving himself from the sins, so he pulls away from them. And that he preserves the command of Allah the Exalted, as said by Ibn Abbas as well as Muqatil. Who the one who feared the most merciful in the unseen. This ayah occurs in Surah Al-Anbiya, the 21st Surah, ayah 49, and we've already discussed it. And he came with a pure and whole heart, meaning he was returning to the obedience of Allah from his disobedience. It will be said, enter therein, meaning enter the paradise, with peace. Now, that is discussing the fact that they are safe from the eternal judgment of Allah. They are safe from the destruction. They are safe from the change in seasons, the changes in affairs, and they are safe from them ever being removed from the paradise. And Allah and His angels shall give blessings to them, because it says that is the day of eternity, meaning in the paradise, where there is neither death, nor shall there be any end to the paradise. They have what they will therein. That's because they shall ask Allah until their requests are met. They shall be given what they desire. Then they shall be given what they didn't ask for. This is why it says, and in our presence is more than what they asked for. More than what they asked for refers to seeing Allah in the hereafter. This was narrated in a hadith from Ali, from the Prophet ﷺ, in which, when he recited this ayah, he said, it refers to them seeing Allah. Anas ibn Malik narrates a hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ said this ayah means seeing Allah, and that it shall be revealed to them this every Friday. Furthermore, the extra will be in the paradise when the cloud passes by the people of the paradise, one of the clouds of the hereafter. Then there will come down to them the maidens of the paradise. And they shall say, we are those who Allah said about them, that we are something additional. And this was narrated by Az-Zajjaj. So the extra also refers to what cannot be realized with the mind, and what cannot be known with the eyes, and what cannot be spoken of with the mouth. What no ear has heard, what no heart has recollected, and what no human being has ever seen. This was mentioned by Abu Sulaiman al-Damashqi. But here Allah later threatens the unbelievers of Mecca by saying, do not be deceived by how they move about in the earth. And he says, right after this, وَكَمْ أَهْلَكْنَا قَبْلَهُمْ مِنْ قَرْنٍ هُمْ أَشَدُّ مِنْهُمْ بَطْشًا فَنَقَّبُوا فِي الْبِلَادِ هَلْ مِنْ مَحِيصٍ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَذِكْرَى لِمَنْ كَانَ لَهُ قَلْبٌ أَوْ أَلْقَى السَّمْعَ وَهُوَ شَهِيدٌ وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا فِي سِتَّةِ أَيَّامٍ وَمَا مَسَّنَا مِن لُغُوبٍ فاصبر على ما يقولون وسبح بحمد ربك قبل طلوع الشمس وقبل الغروب ومن الليل فسبحه وأدبار السجود واستمع يوم ينادي المناد من مكان قريب يوم يسمعون الصيحة بالحق ذلك يوم الخروج إنا نحن نحيي ونميت وإلينا المصير يوم تشقق الأرض عنهم سراعا ذلك حشر علينا يسير نحن أعلم بما يقولون وما أنت عليهم بجبار فذكر بالقرآن من يخاف وعيد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والذاريات ذروا فالحاملات وقرا فالجاريات يسرا فالمقسمات أمرا إنما توعدون لصادق وإن الدين لواقع. And how many before them have we destroyed of the different ages and eras that were greater than them in power, and they moved around in the earth and were mighty in strength. In that is an admonition for the one who has a heart, and or has the hearing been taken away while they bear witness to the truth. We have created the skies and the earth and what is between them in 6 days, and no fatigue touched us at that point. Be patient with what they say. Glorify with praise your Lord before the rising of the sun and before its setting. And in the night, glorify him and praise him. And let yourselves be attuned in prostration. And listen out for a day in which the caller shall make his call from a faraway place. A day in which they shall hear the shout in truth. That is the day of coming out of resurrection. Indeed, we give life and we give death, and to us is the return. On a day in which the earth shall be split from them quickly, and they shall be brought about. That is the gathering, and it's certainly easy for us to do. We know in truth that which they say, and you are not to be dominant over them and be forceful. But remember and admonish with the Quran whoever fears the threat that is to come. Surah Qaf, the 50th Surah, ayat 36 to 45. When the Exalted One has mentioned how many nations were destroyed before, this was given great detail before regarding the unbelievers and their moving around in the earth. They're moving around in the earth because there were nations mightier than this one. And when it's mentioned that the mighty nations from before, He, Allah, also has said in other ayat, أَهْلَكْنَاهُمْ فَلَا نَاصِرَ لَهُمْ. We destroyed them and there was no assistance for them. Surah Muhammad, the 47th Surah, ayah 13. Meaning there was no one to help them, there was no one to protect them. So go about in the earth. It's as if Allah is saying, go about in the earth and see what was the end of those previous nations. Go look at them. What is their state? Indeed, in that, meaning that which was mentioned in the destruction of other nations, is an admonition and a preaching for whoever has a heart. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said, the reference to a heart here means an intellect. Whoever has a heart, whoever has an intellect and a mind to think with. So whoever reflects, or whoever can listen, or are you blinded because the ayah is giving a double understanding? While he can bear witness, meaning that his heart hears, he hears, and he can recollect on the message, unless he's blinded. And while he's a witness, meaning he's a witness to the truth. Now when Allah says, we created the skies and the earth, the scholars of commentary say, the Jews said, Allah created the skies and the earth and what's between them in 6 days, the last of which was Friday. And he rested on the 7th day. And because of this, we do not do any work. These ayat were sent down as a response. And Allah rebuked them for their falsehood because He says, and no fatigue touched us. Now fatigue here means listlessness and tiredness after a day's work. Close quote. Now something important here to keep in mind. When you speak with the children of Israel, it is mentioned. In fact, the way this is written, خَلَقَ اللَّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا فِي سِتَّةِ أَيَّامٍ آخِرُهَا يَوْمُ الْجُمْعَةِ وَاسْتَرَاحَ يَوْمُ السَّبْتِ. That's literally how it appears in the Arabic Bible. That's exactly how that expression looks. And He rested on the 7th day. Now, for the children of Israel, they say, well, He rested on the 7th day, so that was it. That was the end of the work. This is what was done. But here Allah says, no fatigue and no rigor touched Him. So He created all this. All of it was taken care of. All of it was dealt with. But no rigor, no fatigue touched Him. And if you look even in English, when you look in and you open up the first pages of the Bible, it reads in the first passages, after the 7th day, on the 7th day He rested. And often, especially Christians, even Arab Christians, will say, well, the word rested here doesn't mean that. It's like, well, no, wait a minute, hold on. Now we have to go back to the first translation of the Bible by Bishr as-Sirri, Bishr the monk, in the 9th century. And that Bible is a clear translation where the expression istiraha was used, which means to rest after exertion, after work. So the Arab monks who translated this apparently understood the Hebrew the same way as it means to rest, because there's different Arabic words, because they could have put that on after 6 days, and then fawaqafa, and then work was ceased, or fa'akmala, then it was completed, and that wouldn't necessarily imply exhaustion or anything else. It would just mean that the creation was complete. But this expression was used, and it's consistently in every single Arabic Bible. It's consistently been left in place, meaning to take rest, right? And it implies weakness or limitation. And they've constantly tried to get around this by saying, no, it means that was the end of it. Then why they use the word istiraha? Well, the Arab translators were wrong. So 24 monks who have the oldest copy of the Arabic Bible in St. Catherine's Monastery for over 1,200 years had it wrong, and no one ever corrected them. It's even in the modern Arabic Bibles. It's never been corrected. The children of Israel, this has never been corrected. Why? Well, it doesn't really matter, but it does matter. Because it's so important that when they came to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to tell him this is what this means, that these ayats were revealed, where Allah said, no, the skies and the earth were created in 6 days, and no slumber and no tiredness, because lughub is like tiredness or listlessness or slumber, right? None of that touched us, Allah has said. So our understanding is that Allah has done all these things, but the creation only requires lughub, rest, istiraha, right? Only the creation requires this. Then the Imam rahimahullah, he goes on to say, quote, and when Allah says, so be patient regarding what they say, meaning their false claims and their lies. The scholars of commentary say, this ayah for him was abrogated by Surah At-Tawbah, the 9th Surah, ayah 5. As for the statement, so glorify with praise your Lord, meaning pray and glorify your Lord, and magnify him, and declare him as holy from that which the false people say, and do so before the rising of the sun. This is Salatul Fajr. And before the setting of the sun, in which case this refers to Dhuhr and Asr, as mentioned by Ibn Abbas, as well as Qatada, who's also mentioned the same thing. We also have a hadith narrated by Imams Al-Bukhari and Muslim in their collections, which is given by Jarir ibn Abdullah, who said, we were once in the presence of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when it was a full moon night. He said, you will see your Lord with your eyes, just as you see this full moon. There will be no blurriness in the vision. If you are able to do so, and you are not overtaken by sleep, then be prompt pray before the rising of the sun and before the setting. And he recited the ayah, and glorify with praise your Lord before the rising of the sun and the setting. And in the night, glorify him, meaning the prayer in the night in totality, meaning a time in which you pray a portion of it, as said by Mujahid. It also refers to Salat al-Isha because this is at the night, as said by Ibn Zayd. And because Maghrib and Isha, they touch at a certain point, Muqatil said it's referring to both of them. And when he says, and prostrate, be sure to prostrate in these parts of the night. The scholars of commentary say this glorification refers to the 2 rak'ahs prayed after Salat al-Maghrib. This was mentioned by Umar, Ali, Al-Hasan ibn Ali, Abu Huraira, Al-Hasan al-Basri, Mujahid, Al-Sha'bi, Al-Nakha'i, Qatada bin Da'ima, and others, as well as Ibn Abbas. However, some have said that this ayah refers to some optional prayers that are made after the obligatory prayers, as mentioned by Ibn Zayd. Still, others have said that it is the glorification with the tongue, Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, that's said at the end of the compulsory prayers, as is said by Mujahid from Ibn Abbas. So all of these things can be referred to in this ayah. And all of the things that have been said to be referred to in this ayah should be utilized. And then when Allah says, and listen out for a day in which the caller shall ring out. Now the caller ringing out, the scholars of commentary all say, the caller ringing out refers to Israfil. And when he blows into the ram's horn for the day of resurrection, he will be stepping onto the rock at Jerusalem. And he will call out, humanity, come forward to the reckoning. Allah commands you that you gather for the sorting out of all days. And this comes at the same time as the second blowing into the horn. The near place is talking about Jerusalem, as said by Muqatil. As well as Ka'ab. Because it is not that far away. Although as Zajjaj has mentioned that someone said that it refers to when the angel comes to that stone place in Jerusalem at the middle portion and blows into the horn. On a day in which the blast shall be heard. This is the second blowing of the horn that shall be heard. In truth, and this is the horn blowing of resurrection, which there's no doubt in. That is the day in which people shall come out of their graves. We give life and we give death. So, Allah is saying, we cause people to die in this earthly life, and we give them life in the hereafter for resurrection. And to us is the return after the resurrection for the day of judgment. On a day in which the earth shall be split over above them quickly, and they shall dash out from there. That is the gathering, which is easy for us. We know best of what they say when they deny you, meaning the unbelievers of Mecca. But you are not to be the force upon them. So Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said, you are not to try to force them upon Islam. You have been sent to them as a reminder. This was before he was commanded to fight the Arabs. Also, when it's being said, you are not to be the forceful one over them, meaning and dominating over them with governance. Jabariyah. But again, This was finished. You are not to be the governor over them with force, with authority, and Jabariyah. So you are not to act as a king over them, as said by Al-Yazidi. And you cannot force them to Islam if they do not believe. So the scholars of commentary say that this was abrogated for him by Surah At-Tawbah, the 9th Surah, ayah 5. So admonish with the Quran, preach with it, so that whoever fears my threat might respond. So whoever I've promised, whoever disobeys me punishment, whoever might listen from among them might take heed. Close quote. Now, just a very important point. This ayah and others like it go hand in hand because, again, we're talking about the situation with the Arabs. The Prophet ﷺ never offered any Arabs the option of jizya or treaties in which he would share their faith and they'd live in peace with them. His judgment for the Arabs, not the other nations, for the Arabs, was to lay in wait, to fight them, to lay waste to them. He famously said to the Quraysh when he came in front of the Kaaba and they were there, he said, "O Quraysh, I have not come except to destroy the Arabs." And all commentators say that means to destroy that way of doing things, their way of living, their civilization, their culture. So he never took jizya from them. Now, this goes hand in hand with another hadith. أُمِرْتُ أَنْ أُقَاتِلَ النَّاسَ حَتَّى يَشْهَدُوا. I've been ordered to fight the people until they say La ilaha illallah. Imam al-Nawawi, Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali, Muwafiquddin al-Qudama, all these authorities say that hadith in the Sahih of Muslim, the Nas in that hadith means the Arabs. It doesn't mean all of humanity. It means the Arabs. Because those are the only people that can be fought until they say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Those are the only people. Because anyone else would pay the jizya or you'd enter into a treaty or something along these lines. But the Arabs, because they're the sons of Ismail, they're supposed to know that there's one Lord and one King. And it's for this reason why you find ayat, those that remember the seerah that we did, why the Arabs that worshipped idols were banned from coming to the Kaaba for the Hajj the following year. Why they were banned from making tawaf around the Kaaba naked. Why they were banned from coming and doing their worship. Why special attention was made to go out and destroy their idols. The special attention was made and given to the Arabs to attack because these are people that belong to the covenant. The covenant that was mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah, the 2nd Surah, 130 on. Covenant that was mentioned in Surah Al-Imran, the 3rd Surah, ayat 29 on. This covenant is one in which there's a people that 4,000 years ago, Allah entered into a covenant with them. And that covenant's not to be broken. And so because of that, they're not shown the leniences that other nations receive, right? And so their punishment is more severe. And when he came in unto them, he was more severe with them than they were the other nations. And he didn't give them as many opportunities, right? Now, what we will do then, inshallah, is we will stop here and we will pick up, inshallah. Next week I say Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk innahu ghafurur rahim hamid rahimin. Are there any questions over what we've covered today? Any questions? Yes.
Regarding the covenant 4,000 years ago that you were talking about, could you elaborate on that?
Okay. The question was the covenant being made reference to 4,000 years ago. Okay. Alhamdulillah. The covenant being referred to is, if you look at the ayah that starts with يَرْفَعُ إِبْرَاهِيمُ الْقَوَاعِدَ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ وَإِسْمَعِيلُ. This covenant, when Ibrahim and Ismail rose the foundations of the Kaaba. Now there's a number of things that Allah gives them. He said that I will make from among you and your progeny a Muslim ummah. I will send among them a messenger from among them and will recite my signs. I shall feed and give you plenty. So these things that Allah has given, a covenant that he entered into with Ibrahim and Ismail, right? And Ismail is the father of the Arabs. This was a covenant that had been entered into. Its realization comes in the Prophet ﷺ. But the covenant was entered into. Now the children of Israel, they also received the covenant. So all the sons of Ishaq, then his son Yaqub and the 12 tribes, they had a covenant. So much of what we're seeing for the past 4,000 years is the realization of that covenant. So when the Prophet ﷺ comes among them, the Arabs, as we remember from the Sirah, they did not know that there was a prophet to come among them named Muhammad. In anticipation, some people named 3 or 4 or 5 children Muhammad because they were anticipating that this covenant would be brought. The Jews around Medina knew that there's this covenant that's here, and there's a prophet that's coming, and he's going to bring this about. So people knew about this covenant. And this is why Allah has said 3, 4 times, this is an Arabic Quran, so that you might know, so that you might reflect, so that you might use your intellects, so that you might think, right? Because it's in Arabic, that's the sign, because he said in a hadith in the collection of Al-Bakri, we are the last ummah in this life, but we are given preference on the day of resurrection. Now, the first of those who we can say were quickened, because the human race was spiritually dead. The first of those who were quickened were after the Prophet ﷺ, his wife, his children, Abu Bakr, right, and Uthman and the other 10 promised paradise. These are Arabs. These were the first people quickened. And the first people quickened after being spiritually dead were Arabs. And everywhere else, after they left with the peninsula with this Quran in one hand, marching out, has been in the shockwave of that, or has been in the epicenter, or the remainders, or the remains of that earthquake. They're the recipients of that because of the mithaq, this covenant that was made all these years ago. So the first people of this ummah, the ummah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the first people to be woken up were the Arabs, the first people, right? And then everyone else after that was impacted by this covenant. Now the Arabs aren't given any. They're not being given any extra leeway or any lines, and this is why he fought them the way that he was. Whereas other nations, he sent a letter. Here's a letter. Listen to the truth. Accept. If not, then be in covenant with us. The Arabs, no. You must leave idolatry. You must leave it. You must leave it. They had a totally different attitude. If you look at the Arabs when they reached Indonesia, Malaysia, and Bali, their attitude with the idol worshippers there is completely different with the idol worshippers among the Arabs. It's a completely different attitude. Because those Arabs are supposed to know better. You're the sons of Ismail. This is your covenant. You're supposed to know that you don't worship idols, that you don't do that. This is something that's in you. It was a promise that was made, right? Is there another question? No? So, we'll stop here, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك واشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك انه غفور رحيم الحميد الرحيم ولا اله الا الله والسلام عليكم